Hi there, this is Pranav from DPS Diary. Good morning, afternoon, evening, depending on your geographic location. How are you doing today? So today we are going to cover the same thing that we had covered earlier, but that was in theory. Today we are going to do the same through examples, multiple examples. And today we will also cover this in both like SQL and Sybase, and let's see how it really works. Okay, which one is better and why it is better. So I will explain everything. Let's start, and before starting I want to thank you for watching my channel, and if you like my content, do like and do subscribe so that it will motivate me, and also you will come to know what is the other video that I am covering, right? Okay, so let's start. Let me put the recording on. Okay, so I have prepared a list of commands here. So as you can see, so starting with initialization. So here I am talking about database initialization. I mean, you create a database in Sybase, and SQL is straightforward, so I am not going to cover that. So let's start with the disk initialization, right? So this is the command to initialize the disk. So let's go to Sybase. It's installed in my local. Give it a moment, it's coming up. Taking a bit longer, should be fine now. Yes. Okay, so here I opened two sessions. Okay, so that it would be easy for us to see. So let's here I have already logged in. So let's run the command sp_helpdb to see what all database we already have. So you can see we have master model subsystem db, subsystem procs, temp db. So there is no user database defined here, right? Let's log in here as well. ASE1, you want to see how it is, so let me show you using commands, show server. So you can see what our instance are running right now. So you can see ASE1 is running here, minus s ASE1, right? So you can see that. So let's log in here, MSSQL -s, which is ASE1, USA. Okay, so I have logged in here. So use master, it will be default by master. So you can see select db_name, and you can see the database name here. So we are in the master database, right? Okay, let's create first devices of 1 gigs. Okay, this is for the data. So you can see user db_data I am using for data, and then user db_log for the log file, right? So let's start. For this you should be in the master database. So you can see here as well what is the database I am in right now. So you can see it's in master. So let's initialize this. Okay, fine. Now let's initialize for the log. Okay, this has been completed. Now what we'll do, we'll create a database. Okay, so we are using the same 1 GB that we allocated for data and 100 MB for the log, right? So let's create this database now. Here also we can create, there is no problem in that. So database will be created now. Okay, it will be pretty fast, shouldn't take long because it's 1 GB data file and 100 MB log file. Okay, so once the database gets created, then what we will do is we will create 2 tables. Okay, one is test and one is test_dl. Test_dl means for checking or for testing deadlock. Okay, so here let's copy this. So here I am using the best practice to create a table, means I am having an id column which is integer, and it is also having primary key clustered index. Okay, let's go ahead and create it on the SQL server. So here I already have a database called lab. So let's create this table. Table is created. We'll go ahead and create here as well, but here we have to use user db, and let's create this table. table is being created, it's created already. Okay, now let's create the another table which is for the test underscore DL. So this is preparing the lab. Okay, so let's do it on. So here if you want to use, then you have to use that user DB, because right now you are in master database. Select DB underscore name. If you do, so you are in the master database. So use user DB and you are in the database. Now let's create another table, test underscore DL, and we are done. So table is created. Now same thing we have to do it on the SQL Server also, because we need to test exactly the same thing, how it is working. If you see here, it's a master database. So let's change database here. Same command, use, here it's lab, right? So let's create database now, and you see database is changed to lab and table has been created. Now what we'll do, now let's insert data into this table. So what I'm doing here, data, I'm not inserting ID column, because it's a primary key and also it is an identity column. So it will be auto incremental. Okay, so I'm only inserting into the other column. So let's do it here. Okay, so let's insert into this, and let's do one thing here, insert 50 of that. So we'll have 50 rows in the test table, right? Now let's do the same thing with different values in the test underscore DL. Sorry, I have mouse, but I am not using it. So okay, so now insert into test underscore DL, and here again use 50. So there will be 50 rows which will be inserted into test underscore DL table. Now what we'll do, we'll do the same thing in Sybase. So let's do the first insert first. Let's go to Sybase and paste it here. Go 50. So we can use now this in Sybase as well. It was not there before. Okay, SQL is advanced in that way. Okay, so let's insert into test underscore DL now. So insert and go 50. So now 50 transactions will be done. So now if you want to do, just do select top 10 star from test underscore DL. You will see all the columns. So ID, then you have name, then mobile number and location, right? So ID, as you can see, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 like that, right? Top 10 star I have done from test underscore DL. Let's do the same thing from test also, from test. So you can see same way, right? So here it's Pranav, and in the previous one if you see it's Kumar, right? Location is India, and here it's United States. Sounds good? Okay, now let's start with Deadlock, right? So basically I have two tables, both of them have got 50 rows, okay, and column, in terms of column they are having same number of columns, and even data types are same, only values are little bit different, right? Okay, let's start with the scenario of Deadlock 1. So here what we are planning to do, here we'll do two write operation. Okay, write operation means it could be delete, it could be insert, it could be update. So I am focusing on the update. Okay, so let's start with SQL Server. Let's put it here in the session 1. So this is my session 1. So just to avoid confusion, let's remove the comments, let's remove the previous part, and let's do session 2. So let's copy it. We'll execute one by one, we'll not execute all of them together. So what we'll do, we'll start with begin tran and update the test underscore DL table where ID is equal to 5. So basically we are updating only one row. Okay, let's do this. So one row is affected. I am putting begin tran just to slow down the operation, right? So we can see. Now do begin tran here, same thing. So here I am updating test table, not the test underscore DL. So now test underscore DL was already updated. Now I did update on the test table, right? Now let's go ahead and update in the test table. And if you see, the ID numbers are totally different for all 4 statements. It's not same. Okay. So now do this and let's see what happens. It is updated, there is no blocking. So when there is no blocking, that means there is no deadlock. So it went through perfectly fine, right? This was SQL Server. Now let's go ahead and do the same statements on Sybase. So let's start. So do begin tran first. This is the reason I have opened two sessions, right? So now paste this statement. One row updated. Now do begin tran here. Okay. Now let's use the second statement, first statement of next session, right? Okay. So let's update it here. So here you see its ID is equal to 10 and in the other one ID is equal to 5, but the tables are different. It's not same table. So let's go ahead and do the update. Okay. One row updated. No issues here at all. Everything is fine. Perfectly fine. Now let's go ahead and run the second statement in session 1. Let's see what happens. And it is blocked. It will be blocked forever unless you either commit it, you do rollback, or you kill it, right? This is what are the possibilities. So blocking will not be solved by optimizer. Blocking you have to solve it. Your application has to solve it, DB has to solve it, or somebody who knows about the thing has to do some change in the configuration to solve it. So either it has to be DBA or the application team, right? So this will not go anywhere. Now what we will do? Now we will execute the second statement from second session. So here as you see in SQL Server we did not have any blocking. It went through perfectly fine, right? So SQL Server is much better in this statement, in this case. Now the moment I do go and hit enter, what will happen? Now you see we are updating test table and test DL table, and here also we are doing same thing in different order, right? So now one is already blocked. Now if I do one more block, that will be cyclic blocking, which is called deadlock. Okay. So now do go and see what happens. So you see deadlock, right? Deadlock happened. So now let's roll back our statement. So here we see SQL Server is really good. It did not have any blocking, it did not have deadlock. So if there is no blocking, there is no deadlock, right? Let's roll it back so that we could go to next statement. Here it's not required because it has already been rolled back, but just for safer side. Now let's go ahead and do the rollback here. Okay, so that we maintain the data as it was. Roll back and roll back. One other good thing about SQL Server is I did roll back and it worked because there was a begin tran here. If I do roll back now without running begin tran, this will fail. This will fail. However, in case of Sybase, you keep on issuing rollback command, nothing will happen. It won't throw any error. There is another way of checking whether any active transaction is there or no, but apart from that, in SQL Server it will immediately tell you that there is no active transaction, right? So this way SQL Server is better. Now let's move to the next one. Okay, so this was write versus write. Now let's go and do read versus write. Okay, so let's copy this in the SQL Server again. Okay, and let's copy the second session. Session 1 is copied. Now session 2. Okay, so let's go and copy it here. Let's go ahead and execute first set of statements in SQL Server in session 1. So here we are updating test underscore DL, okay, for a specific ID. Now here we are going to update the test table for a specific ID. So one row will be updated. Now what we are doing is we are going to select from this table, okay, from test table, which has already been updated in the another window. It is working fine. Now here it's working fine, no issues. Okay, perfectly fine, no problem at all. Now let's go to Sybase and see how the same thing works in Sybase. So first statement from session 1, let's go to Sybase now. So just do begin tran and paste the statement, one row updated, begin tran. Okay, now let's copy the second statement from the first session. No, sorry, first we have to do the first statement from the second session to keep it the locking required. Now perfectly fine, one row updated. Now let's do read from the session 1 and see what happens. Okay, so let's see what happens. So now you see there is blocking. What if we have another session, next session, wherein we will do again the read operation? So there is already blocking. So now it will be cyclic blocking, which means it will cause deadlock. You can see, so this one had deadlock. Okay, so let's roll back. So here you saw it worked perfectly fine for SQL Server. However, in case of Sybase, it threw deadlock. So far so good for SQL Server, but for Sybase, no, it's not. So this is the standard behavior of Sybase. I have not done any change on the table level or on the configuration level. Even in SQL Server, I have not done any change, neither at the table level nor at the configuration level. Okay, so far SQL Server is really good, and it has really not caused any blocking or any deadlock. Okay, now what we'll do? We'll do some change in the Sybase. Okay, so we need to enable the data rows for that table, because right now if you see, if you do sp_help of test, you will see it is having all pages locking. This is all page, which is default. Okay, you can also see select lock scheme and test all pages, select lock scheme test_dl, and this is all pages. So what we need to do is we need to change from all page to data, like you can do data page or data row. So I would prefer or suggest to go for data row, because this is a row level locking and not at the page level locking. In some case you may need to go for data page. I have already covered that, and you can again see the previous video. Maybe I can again explain that in the upcoming video, the difference in data page and data row. Right. So now in order to do the change from all page to data row or data page, you need to enable select into for the database. It's a DB option, because you need to the optimizer has to copy all set of rows from the table to somewhere else and then to make the change, right? So let's do this, and in some cases it might take very long and it could cause hell lot of blocking. So you need to be very careful when you perform this operation. If the table is really large, it's very small, it doesn't matter much, but it is also about the resources in your environment. If the RAM is really very high, memory is really good, and cores are very good, so in that case you can complete the operation very fast, even if you have large table. So depending on the size of table and your environment resources, you have to be careful, and you have to plan accordingly. But still, it's better to do it in the office hours, okay, or after office hours. So now what we need to do, I went to the master, and now we have to enable that select into, otherwise it will not work. Okay, now so let's do this. Okay, this has been done. So now it says to use the checkpoint to make it work perfectly fine. So let's do checkpoint. So now we are in the user DB and we have done checkpoint. Okay, now let's go and change the table logging. So alter table test log data rows. Done. So now if you see, you'll select log scheme. Sorry, test. Now it's data rows. So same way we will do the alter for alter table test_dl lock data rows. So now if you see lock scheme test underscore DL, and this is data row. So it has been changed, right? So now let's go back and check the problem that we had in the beginning, okay? Or let's go with the next, because you have already seen that unless you solve it, this will not solve the problem, right? So let's use the next example, okay? So this is again write versus read, okay, but it's a different kind of example, right? So let's start. So we'll go ahead and do the same thing in SQL first. Copy and then we will execute and see how it is. So this one is copied, session 1. Now let's do for the session 2. So just to keep you informed, I have not done any change on the SQL Server side. It is still default, right? Now let's go ahead and do this in the SQL Server. There is difference in the query that I ran previously and now. There is difference. If you see the rows which is affected here, okay, because I have not putting any where clause here, okay. Now check this, what happens. There is blocking and there is blocking and there is cyclic blocking, so there will be deadlock. Clear? Now let's go to Sybase. Let's roll back our changes. Since it was open transaction, the rollback will go fine. If you execute it here, this will throw error saying that there is nothing which is having a begin tran, right? Okay. Now let's go to Sybase after doing the change, right? This is not a this is not how the standard thing is. I mean, you have done some change on this on the table level, right? So let's go ahead and do this on the Sybase and see how it is. Begin tran, go. So as I mentioned earlier, so here I have made some change, which is the locking scheme, which I talked about earlier in my theory session. So let's go ahead and execute the next statement. So here it was test underscore DL. Here I am focusing on test table. So as I mentioned before, this is updating the complete table or all the rows in the table, right? Now let us go ahead and do the select from session 1, which is read operation, and see what happens. Okay, so here again I am doing this. So all rows came. Now let's go ahead and see, all rows came. There is no problem at all. So in SQL it did not work. We had blocking and we also had deadlock. But in Sybase, after doing the change of locking scheme, this starts performing far better than SQL Server. So here we have clear winner. Okay, so let's roll it back. So we have seen that SQL Server had a deadlock. Okay, now let's go to next scenario. Okay, by the way, do you have any idea what can be done to solve this deadlock? Is there anything which can be done? It can be. There is a possibility. It can be done, right? But we'll see that little bit later. Or maybe I will do one thing. I will cover all the deadlocks and will publish one PDF. Okay, maybe I could put some charge, but I will cover most of things in the video. Maybe if you understand the like logic what I am using to fix the deadlock, I think you would be able to solve it yourself. And in case of any question, you can put your comment and I would be more than happy to assist. Okay, so let's go ahead. So this one is done, right? Location is equal to India. Now let's go ahead and focus on the next case, deadlock 4. Okay, so before that, let's do some updates on both sides, Sybase and SQL. Okay, So I'm just updating certain rows here, so all of them are completed. Okay, now let's go ahead and get, so this has to be done on the Sybase as well, right? So let me go ahead and okay, 1 2 3 4 all updated, I think, right? Yes, you can see 1 1 1 1, so 4 rows updated, perfectly fine. Now let's go ahead and do the session 1. So basically, if you see what update I have done here, before all the rows were having same values for name and mobile number and location. So here what I have done is I have tried to update one row for different values. Okay, so like for I23 I have set the name as Pathak in the test table. In the test DL for different ID I have put the name as Pathak, and in test DL I have put the name ABC for different ID, and again in the test for the same ID different name, right, just to prepare the case. So let's go ahead and do begin run, and let's run this. One row updated because I have done update for that Pathak, right? Let's take a pause. Okay, let's resume. So now let's go to next session. So in this, let's take the first update statement and put it here after doing begin run. So one row updated, so far so good. Now let's update this table and one row affected, so far so good. So in Sybase we did not have any problem. Actually I should have done this for the SQL first, and you see there is no problem here at all. Now let's do the same statement in SQL. Session 1 here, okay, and session 2 here. Let's update this, perfectly fine, one row. Now update blocking and blocking, which means it will cause deadlock. Okay, so here again Sybase is much better after doing the change of locking scheme. So this will fail here always because we don't have anything. So Sybase is clear winner after changing the locking scheme. So performance wise, when you do change of locking scheme for a table, okay, it helps you in solving many other cases. Actually you can eliminate deadlock completely from your environment unless and until it hits the same particular row. If it is different row, you will not have deadlock in your environment after doing the change for deadlock, after doing the change for data row in Sybase. Okay, now one more scenario, let's test it. So here if you see, I have put different rows all together. So here I am putting this name is equal to Pathak, right, in the test underscore DL, and here it was test underscore DL, it's different no row. So even though the rows are different, we still have this issue, right? So we still have deadlocks. So let's focus now on one by one. One by one means one row, right, and versus everything else. So here we will test the scenario of data row completely. So what I meant is, let's go ahead and do this in SQL Server. Okay, and here, so just to understand this, here I am updating this test underscore DL where name is equal to Pathak. This will update one row, and in this case, in the second scenario, in the second session, I am updating test underscore DL where name is not equal to Pathak. So basically I am covering everything else. So this will update one row, whereas in the second scenario I am updating all 49 rows. Okay, so this will for sure it will have blocking and deadlock in case of SQL. In Sybase, let us see how it works out, because when we checked it was one-to-one mapping, right? Let's take a pause for a second. There is some background noise. Okay, let's resume. So here let's do begin run and update this. So basically this will update one row, and here again it will take update only one row. But however, in the case of next one, it will update all 49 rows, and this will be blocked. The moment I hit on the other one, this will be deadlocked. Okay, let's resume. So let's roll back. So in the case of Sybase, now let's see how it works out. I'm doing it every time just to show that it will not work. Now let's go ahead and do this in the Sybase. Let's roll back first, just to avoid any issue, any update that we have done in the previous session. So let's do update. No, sorry, I have to do begin run. So you can do reset and begin run, and now paste statement. So it will update one row. Now let's go ahead and do the update for the test table, because we need for the test underscore TL table, right? Now let's go ahead and do this for the test table. So it will update again one row only. So let's do it, one row updated. Now the next statement is to update all rows in the table except this particular row. All right. So let us see how the Sybase works. In SQL Server it could not update. Now let us solve this or see how it worked. It worked, right? It worked. No issues, no blocking. Now, so if there is no blocking, there is no deadlock. Worked perfectly fine. So Sybase is way better than SQL Server after doing the change for locking scheme, right? Now, so understand in this way that SQL Server works perfectly fine when you are hitting different rows, right? But in Sybase, after you do the change for locking scheme, it treats every row separately, right? So this is how it works. Now let us go for one more scenario, okay, and let us see how it works. Or before that, do you want to have the solution for this or the previous one? What do you think? Let us go. So when the deadlock started, right? So let's go here when Sybase started winning. Okay, let's go ahead. So from here we saw that Sybase was working fine, but SQL Server was not. Just to reiterate this, so here we saw that this works, however this starts blocking and you get deadlock, right? Do you want to give solution for this yourself? Maybe I will do one thing. I have solution for this. I will prepare the PDF and then we'll upload it, and maybe you can download at very minimal or no nominal price. So just think in this way. I am trying to put something here where the columns are different. Okay, so or let me just try to do this idx underscore test, okay, on test. So let's take this column loc comma name. Okay, let's create this index. Created. Now let us see how it works. See the difference? it was not coming before, it was getting blocked, right? What if this will still be blocked, right? Because we did create index on test table only, not on the test underscore dl. So by creating an index, we solved blocking. First was blocking, then second was deadlock. So let's go ahead and do something. Now it came. Okay, let me do one more thing. So now we'll do the same thing, and we'll create on test underscore dl. Let's create this index. So we had blocking. Now let's see how it works. So this is updated, all 50 rows, all updated. Now this one was not having any blocking. This went fine perfectly. How about this? Worked. So I gave you one solution for deadlock, how to solve it in the SQL Server. All right. Sybase, we know how to solve it, so that is done. So anything else is remaining? Let me see. Yeah, so let's go ahead and do this. So let's copy this, put it here. Okay, and the next session. Okay, now we already have index. Okay, we already have index on name and location, I think, right? Let me show it to you. Table test, so indexes. So we have, so if you see the property of that, okay, location and name, location and name. So let's go ahead and do this operation now. I think previous one was not completed. 1 second. Something was remained open. Yes, so it was open. Okay, so it was not rolled back, because if you do it without begin try, it will not work. So that means it was open, right? Now let's go ahead and do this. One row affected, one row affected. How about this? Deadlock, right? Now this one I will not give solution in the video, I will upload this in the PDF. Let's roll back and let's see how the same thing works in Sybase. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this. So let's roll back first and roll back here as well. So let's go ahead and do this. Sorry. One row affected. Now let's go ahead and do this. So basically it will work in Sybase, because we have already tested the scenario wherein we took one row versus all other rows, right? Now let's go ahead and do this. Worked, no blocking, meaning no deadlock. Worked fine, perfectly fine, no issues at all. So Sybase is way better than SQL Server in many cases, not in all the cases, but in many cases, right? Now this I will leave it up to you. I will make this as challenging for you, and you can put your comment with the answer, like how this can be solved. The previous one I explained you how to solve that after creating index. So there is something here as well which you can really try and let me know. Okay, so this is what we covered, and just to bring certain thing, like previously when SQL Server was winning, and we said that Sybase is not really winning because we did not have this like data pages or data row locking. So now you can test all of them, and this will work perfectly fine. Okay, it will not be blocked, there will be no deadlock. So basically if you can manage to solve blocking, so indirectly you are solving many deadlocks, Okay, so first thing for you to check is the blocking. If in your environment your first target is to solve the blocking. So if you are joining to a new organization or a new company and you see there are many deadlock, that means you are seeing deadlock, but actually it is already happening in the form of blocking. Okay, first is block, then you have deadlock. One more thing which I wanted to show you, in the case of Sybase, if you want to see the information of deadlock, okay, you need to see whether it is enabled or no. Deadlock, sorry, so sp underscore configure print deadlock. Okay, so if this is not enabled, okay, if this is 0, then you will not be able to see the details of deadlock in the error log. Now I showed you deadlock, all of them in the session, however you can see them in the error log, right? So I am in the install, so lsltr, now I can do tail -100 and ASE1 dot log. So you will see that there are details of deadlock, shared page, okay, then you will see other details also. You see here select statement, the ID and the table name, you will have a lot of information here, test underscore DL, test, all the table information is here. So this is what I wanted to cover. So I gave you details of deadlock and how to solve them in different scenarios, right? Basically I have covered 2-3 operations. So one is write versus write, then write versus read, and also I have tried to cover one special scenario wherein I am updating all the rows and having select operation. So write versus write one on the row level, whereas write versus write and write versus read in all the rows versus one row or specific rows. So basically if you do this change, you can solve almost 80% of deadlock in your environment. Only one deadlock which you may not be able to solve, that is row level. Row level means it is hitting the same row. If you want, I can show you what I am trying to say by that. So let us take this, the very first example. Yeah, this is the very first example. So let me show you. Let's connect to the ISQL. Here we are already in the user DB, I think, right? Okay, so let's take the first example. So let's do this. This will not cause any deadlock right now in the given scenario. Okay, updated. Now let's take this in the next scenario and let's update this. Worked fine. Now update this. Worked fine. And update this. This will also work fine. Where it will not work is, I will show you that also. Okay, now let's do begin run again. So let's copy this. One row affected. Now let's copy this. Okay, now here what we'll do is the next one, test table, right? So let's take this as 10 and here test underscore DL, let's take a 5. So let's take this. So test, you updated the row having ID 10 and this is blocking. Now if I execute the other statement on the same row, then there will be deadlock. Let us see here, and you see Deadlock. So basically you are updating the exactly same row, right? So how can this work out? There are some solution for this also, but I will not cover this right now. So I hope this really will help you in eliminating deadlock in your environment. Okay, so and this is very detailed level. I have covered multiple examples in the lab in Sybase and SQL. So it will help you in both SQL and Sybase. And do let me know in case you like this video. Do like them, and send your comment if you know the answer of a few of them, or you have some other input. I would be more than happy to listen to that, and subscribe to my channel. Okay, so that is all. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time. Thanks. Thank you.